Okay, so for today, we are going to talk about chapter 4, which is all about social perception. And as we start a new chapter, we're going to start some new concepts and new definitions and things like that. So let's talk about social perception. So social perception, my favorite thing about social perception is this idea of people watching. So how many of you are people watchers? So give me a thumbs up, hit me up in the chat. How many of you are like, you're out in the wild, right? At the grocery store, and you see a family and you're like, ooh, who are these people? And you're like, oh, this is an interesting mix of people. Okay. And you're like trying to figure them out. Like, who's the grandma? Who's the mom? Who's the crazy uncle? Right. And you're just like trying to figure out everybody and who they are. Right. We all do it. Okay. We all look at people and we're like, who are you? You don't ask them because you want to be polite, but there are people who do ask. And I always say, don't ask, right? Just live your happy life with the questions that don't get answered. Okay. Don't go up to people and be like, so who are you? Are you the mom? Like, that's super rude. Let's not do that. But we question, right? We want to know why people are the way they are. We want to know why people act the way that they do. We want to understand relationships. We want to understand interactions. You might see two people together and they're acting really weird together. And you're like, are they together? That maybe that's a big age gap, or maybe it could be like father-daughter. And you're like, what? Right? And then you like watch them because you're curious, right? Why is it that we're so curious about other people's behavior? Well, when we learn more about people's behavior, then we're able to better predict other people in other situations. They help us understand why and how we form impressions about people, and it helps us make inferences about others, because when we can develop more information about how people act, that helps us prepare better how we need to act in certain situations. And so sometimes these can be dangerous situations, and sometimes they're fine situations. But the more information that we can gather, then the more that we can be prepared to deal with in other situations. And the faster that we can make these impressions and form these impressions. Now, sometimes we form them incorrectly, right? Has anybody ever met somebody for the first time and you're like, I hate you. I never want to see you again. You're the worst person I've ever met. And then you start to get to know them and you're like, you know what? I hate you a little less. You're not that bad. And so sometimes our first impressions can really impact how we engage with people. And that can sometimes be wrong. And sometimes we're super right, right? So it's okay. I'm not going to judge you. How many of you enjoy reality TV? It's okay. I'm not going to judge you. Okay. If you love reality TV, that's super fantastic. I used to like it, but then I got really tired of people. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a break. Okay. So there's a lot of people who like reality TV. And in fact, there's so many people who like reality TV that it's a multi-million dollar industry, right? Okay. So some people are like, yeah, I do, or I used to. Okay. The reason why there's so many people who watch things like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, The Kardashians, Real Housewives, is because we are super curious about human behavior. We're curious about relationships. We like to watch other people. We like to be a fly on the wall. Yeah, that makes it sound creepy, but we really do. We really do enjoy looking at other relationships and understanding other people. And the reality TV programmers have brilliantly taken advantage of this and continue to make money off of other people's situations and lives, because they know that people will tune in. They want to see the drama. So one thing that we can do when we're sort of investigating other people or trying to figure people out is listen to what they say, right? So we can hear exactly what people say and the words that they use and all of that. But what's really, really important beyond just the words that you use is your nonverbal communication. Okay. So for example, nonverbal communication is anything that you do that doesn't use words. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not. It doesn't matter. It still fits in the nonverbal communication category. These are things that are very easily observable that we can see and hear that people do that can help us form impressions. It's really, really important in communication, and especially important in first impressions, because we can sometimes form incorrect impressions about people because we misinterpret their body language. We might misinterpret tone. We're going to, meet somebody for the first time. We're not kind of used to how that person reacts and how that person communicates. And so sometimes that can be a problem when we meet people for the first time, and that can actually lead to false first impressions. And once you develop a negative first impression for someone, that's really hard to break. Now, it's easy to go from, developing a first impression that's pretty positive, and then you find out later that maybe they're not as nice as you thought. Okay, that's a little bit easier to understand, but usually those first impressions that are negative are really hard to break because you've got this kind of preconceived notion by that person from the first interaction with them. But nonverbal communication is just as important, if not more important, than verbal communication. And this is really, really a problem when you do things like text and email, because it's really hard to understand tone in those situations. That's why nonverbal communication, nonverbal behavior is so important for us to understand what's going on with the person's sort of intention. Tell me what you think these facial expressions represent. Okay. There are 6 of them, and I want you to guess your best guess on what you think from left to right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 basic emotions, and I want you to write out what you think those emotions are, okay, based off of the picture. The first one, this one right here, most of you, it looks like everybody's pretty much got it. That's angry or mad. Right? That one's really easy to tell. And that one is so easy to tell. An evolutionary psychologist would say, we're really good at understanding mad because mad can be dangerous, right? You see this face here coming at you, you're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, what I do? And you're going to run the other direction, right? Or maybe you're like, you know what? Let's throw our hands and throw it down. I don't know, whatever your personality is and whatever you feel like at the moment. So most of you have gotten this one. This second one right here, this one has gotten people kind of split. Okay. So some of you said shocked and some of you said fear. And those are a little bit more difficult to tease apart. This one is actually fear. Okay. And the fear is represented by the really big eyes, the open mouth of, oh my gosh, and this, kind of overall, and pupils dilated. Yes, that all will certainly factor into fear. Fear and shock can be a little bit more difficult to distinguish because there are so many similar traits in terms of facial expressive muscles involved. Most of you, looks like, if not all of you, got this one, which is disgust, which is, ugh. And think of disgust as anything like you smell something disgusting, everything in your face is going to pull inward. Your mouth is going to get small. Your nose is going to get smushed in. You are literally trying to remove yourself from the disgust. Okay. That's what disgust is. And so it's the same reaction when you hear about something disgusting, or, even if you don't smell or see something, but something disgusts you in general, you want to remove yourself from it. You don't like it. Right. And that's how you shrivel up your face to get away from it. This one right here, super easy to get. Everybody got that. Happiness, right? Happy face. This one right here gets confused with fear. And this one is shock. And really the difference is it's the same sort of expression, but just muted, right? So here the eyes are really, really wide. Here they're wide, but they're not as wide. If you compare these two and I said, which one is shock and which one is fear, you might say, oh, he's shocked, but he doesn't look scared. This one looks scared. You see his eyebrows are raised higher. His mouth is open wider. His eyes are open wider. that in comparison looks more like fear than this one, which is just like, oh, okay. That's an interesting fact that you told me. I wasn't expecting that, right? Versus, oh my God, there's a bear, right? Two very different kind of reactions, but using the same facial features. And then this one, everybody got sad. Okay. Everyone's really good at sort of distinguishing what sad looks like. Okay. And then these are the 6 basic emotions. So the 6 basic emotions are anger, fear, disgust, happiness, surprise, and sadness. Those are the 6 basic emotions. And I'm going to talk about why we understand that these very specific 6 are important and why we call them basic emotions. Okay. And we'll build on that. Now, if I were to ask you on a test, what are the 6 basic emotions? Those are the ones that I would expect. If I ask you how many basic emotions are there, and I give you an answer of 6, the answer is 6. Okay. There is a trick to this though. And I don't ever want to trick anybody, but I do want to say that there's an argument, a debate, that there's a 7th basic emotion called contempt. Okay. Now, contempt is a mixture of disgust and anger. Okay. So if you are in a cafeteria hall and you don't know the person across the hall and somebody comes at you with this face, what are they thinking about you? So you match eyes with this person and they're like, let's see if I can do it. They're looking at you like this. What are you thinking? What do they think about you? They might want to hurt you. They're unsure about you. They don't like you. Do you think that person likes you? No. They're like, I don't want to go. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Ew. That's the ew. They're looking at you. Ew. You're gross. Okay. I don't know what you did. I don't like you, but ew. And it's like, you don't want to approach somebody like that, right? You catch somebody's eyes like this across the way. You're going to be like, what'd I do to you? And then you might match it. You might look at it back. Be like, so if you don't know the person and they're giving you this look, it can be a little dangerous, right? So this is, so contempt is this feeling that a person or a thing is beneath them, right? That person is beneath consideration. They're worthless. They are deserving of scorn, right? I don't like you. Okay. That's kind of the feeling of what contempt is. And honestly, so it is the sort of 7th emotion, and people can identify this because it looks like a mixture of sort of disgust and anger together. But the key feature is this kind of one side of the lip pulled up and then the flattened eyebrows, right? Just not really into you. Okay. So what I'd like to do is have another exercise or have an exercise of nonverbal behavior. And what that is me going through some versions of how to say the same thing. Okay. So I don't know her. Okay. Now you can say this in a lot of different ways to convey a different meaning for every single time you say it differently. The words are the same. The order is the same, but how you say it, the tone that you say it, and what words you emphasize will change the meaning. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of these and I'm going to say it as best I can in the way that I think it should be. And I want you to pick from these emotions here, what way I said it. And then I want you to think about, what do I mean? Okay. So I don't know her. Good. Disgust. What do I mean when I say, I don't know her? Like she's beneath you. Yep. I'm emphasizing her. I don't want to be associated with her. I don't know her. Or how about, yes, very good, that you don't want to affiliate with her. Okay. What about, I don't know her. Sarcastic. Yes. Or I could say, I could emphasize a different word. What do I mean by this? I don't know her. I don't know her, but I know of her. I don't know her, right? And this is why English is such a fantastic and also very complicated language. You say that one phrase, you could be saying that you actually know her, or you could be saying that you don't really know her, or you could be saying that you kind of know about her. There's so many variations in this one. Okay, let's do another one. I don't know her. It's sad. What do I mean by that? I don't know her. I wish I did. I don't know her, but I kind of wish I did know her. Yeah, absolutely. Great job, guys. Okay, let's do one more. I don't know her. Surprise. Okay. What if I say, I don't know her? What do I mean by that? Well, if I emphasize the I don't know her. Same surprise, but I'm emphasizing the I don't know her, but somebody else does. I don't know about her, but you may know her. Yes, your friends may know her. Okay, we'll do one more because let's emphasize another word. Okay, well, because the last one that we haven't done is emphasizing don't. Okay. Okay, so pick the emotion and what I mean. I don't know her. Angry, I'm mad, and you are accusing me of something, of knowing her. I'm defensive, right? I said, so don't ask me again. I said, I don't know her, right? That, and I mean, by saying, I don't know her, okay, you know somebody else, I don't know her means you do know her, but you don't know her like that, right? I don't know her means somebody else knows her. So this one phrase, we've just said it like a million different ways. Okay. Somebody here said you're angry, you're emphasizing that you really, really don't know her and you really, really need to stop. Right. This again, language is complicated, but every single one of those is said in a different emotion, is emphasizing a different word and conveying a different meaning. If you got the text, I don't know her, somebody texted you, I don't know her, how would you identify the word that you're emphasizing without tone? How can you do this? Can you do this? Okay. Put the word in all caps, right? If you say, I don't know her, I would put don't in all caps with an angry face. I said, I don't know her, right? Okay. Some people capitalize the word. Sometimes I put a little asterisk beside the word. I'm like, or I'll do like sarcasm font and I'll like say sarcasm font, even though it's like takes forever to write it out. Right. Okay. Yeah, and that's exactly right. So somebody commented, I tend to imagine the other party has a natural neutral tone unless they use an emoji. Absolutely. Not everybody thinks this way, right? So some people think like a thumbs up response to a really long text, that's passive aggressive, right? That's like, I don't care about your problem, whatever, dude, right? So even the emojis can carry a tone and carry a nonverbal sort of a sense about them. And so it's really important to understand culture and understand what those things mean, right? But there's a really funny Key and Peele skit. If anybody's seen it and they're okay with F-bombs, it's really, really funny where they're texting each other and they're reading each other's text to each other. And one of them is super neutral and fun. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, you're coming over. And the other one's like, oh, you're coming over. And they're essentially miscommunicating between these two texts. And one of them comes and tries to fight the other one. And he's just having a good time. And so I really encourage you to look that one up because it is a lot of fun. I don't play it in class because of course, some people get offended. So I try to avoid offense usually. Okay, so let's talk about more about what we just kind of talked about with the example. So what are these nonverbal cues? So facial expression, okay, really helps to demonstrate emotion. You can say one thing, but your face is saying something else. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, I can't control my face, I'm sorry, right? So you're trying not to be judgmental, but your face is like, and it gets super judgmental, right? The tone of your voice, what you're going to emphasize, your gestures. If you're like, oh my God, leave me alone, okay, and somebody says something to you and you're like, Okay. That probably means the person's having a mental breakdown. You need to relax. Okay. Leave that person alone. All right. They're like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. They're not fine. Leave them alone. Right. Body positions, movements, going like this with your hands and feeling more inward versus having a more outward posture might mean defensive. It might mean you don't feel safe, right? Use of touch, being able to, put your hands on people or, kind of jerk away. These things can convey different meaning, and gaze as well. What happens when you are talking to somebody and they do not look you in the eye? What does that mean to you? Somebody's not looking at you in the eye. They're not confident. They're not respecting you. They might be lying. These are all potential reasons why somebody might not be looking at you in the eye, right? All great examples. Now, what's happening in the brain as we are going through these communications, right? There are special brain cells in the brain called mirror neurons. And these brain cells are really, really important for behaviors that are mimicking behaviors. Okay. So, in a simple sense, when you kick a ball, you're outside and you kick a ball, there are certain neurons that fire in your brain. Those cells respond to you kicking a ball. When you watch people kick a ball, so if you watch a video of a person kicking a ball, you're not kicking the ball, but you're watching someone else kick a ball, you have the same reaction in your brain. The same cells are firing as if you were actually kicking the ball. These are the mirror neuron networks. And what that is it's an observation that you are making, and your brain is responding as if it were performing the act. These are really, really important because it helps us be empathetic. So when we see somebody experience an emotion, our brains respond to that emotion by feeling the same emotion and understanding what that person's feeling. So sympathy is like feeling sorry for someone, right? Sympathy is like, oh, you're having a bad time. I'm sorry about it. Empathy is, wow, I understand what you're feeling. I'm sorry, and I can relate. Okay. So empathy is different than sympathy. It's kind of like an elevated version of sympathy. So when you see somebody upset, your brain is responding to that by feeling sad and feeling, okay, I am going to help this person. Okay, that might be your personality. I want to help this person because I understand how they're feeling, right? And we know that these cells are really, so I've got a comment about looking in the eye. We're going to talk about that and cultural differences too. So I'm going to get to that. Speaking about looking in the eye and all that, that is a US culture. That's a Western culture thing. And we'll get into the difference between Western and Eastern cultures. But yeah, gaze and stuff, gaze and space and all that, very culturally specific. We're going to get into those details later. But I just want to, say that is a culturally specific thing to Western culture about gaze. Now, when when we're engaging in certain behaviors, we want those mirror neurons to fire because that helps us be closer to people and have better relationships. And evolutionarily speaking, empathy helps us form better bonds and relationships with others. You can also see this in action. It's really kind of fun. So I do this with my kids. I have this, and your parents might have done this with you. Once you observe it, it's hard to not see. Sometimes when you are talking to somebody, especially a child, and they know what you're about to say, and you say it very slowly, if you watch their mouth, they'll mouth it with you. It is the funnest thing ever. Every time somebody does it, and I've done it to my husband too. He doesn't realize it. He's in the other room. I hope he doesn't hear me. Sometimes when I say something really slow and he knows I'm going to say it, he will also mimic the motion in your mouth. So if you go up to somebody and you say, if I have to tell you one more time, if you watch the mouth of the person, they know what you're going to say, they'll mouth it with you. They don't even know they're doing it. And it's observational learning, mirror neuron feedback thing that's really hard, especially for kids to control, because their neurons are firing just like your neurons are firing, because you know what you're about to say and they know what you're about to say. Try it out on somebody. Say something really slow in their face and see if they start something that they should know what you're going to finish, and see if they'll finish it, mouth it with you, and they don't even know it's happening. It's a really kind of fun little psych trick. Debatable. That's kind of a hot topic, especially when it comes to people like, for example, who have autism, who seems to have a mirror network neuron that isn't as active as some people who don't have autism. So in theory, technically, yes, that would be how it in theory should work. The stronger the network, the more empathetic you should be, but we don't always find that. The research doesn't always support that sort of notion as strongly, because the brain is super complicated. But in theory, that's really how it should work. It should be the stronger your network, the more mirror neurons you have, the more empathetic you can be. But we know that, that's not always the case when we look at the research. But yes, that's the right line of thinking. I've also got a question here. Is this why we feel sad when a fictional character on TV is sad or something bad happens to them, even though neither the person or the situation is real? Yeah, it's real to you. It's real to your brain. And so your brain is experiencing this faked emotion, but to your brain and to you, it feels real. So yeah, that's exactly why you kind of catch on to that emotion, because your brain's firing the same way. So if you're sad, don't watch sad movies. It's just going to make you sadder, right? Watch happy movies so you can emulate happy behaviors when you're sad. So kind of continuing on to this, what's the function of nonverbal behavior? Well, it's to express emotion. I can express that I'm angry. You can convey an attitude. I like you, right? You see somebody across the way. This is going to be super creepy, and I apologize in advance. Let's say you're at a bar and somebody's like, finger guns, hey, what's up? Okay. From across the way, they're conveying an attitude that they like you in a super creepy way, but sometimes it's all people know. And so they're just like trying to wink at you, like, hey, babe, what's up? And you're like, ew, leave me alone. But that's conveying an attitude about somebody. You could also convey an attitude that I hate you. You're just like, ew, get away from me. And you don't eye contact or whatever without saying it, right? And you can also communicate your personality. So you can be extroverted and have a big gesture, or you could be more introverted and you can kind of, keep more towards yourself and focus your energy inward. These are all ways that we use nonverbal behavior. We also can, and I think that women are especially good at this. I'm not saying that men can't do it. I'm just saying that women understand certain communications with each other. So if you're at a bar and you look at somebody and you're like, okay, you're like, hey, look at that person, either get me out of here, or oh, look at that person, oh, they're looking at you, So we can convey a lot of communication without having to holler at somebody across the room. Okay. And kind of like the blink twice if you're in help, need help sort of thing, right? Also, some people are hard to read. And so you might not have a problem with pretty much everybody, but there's a couple people that kind of are hard to read. Best thing you could do is just say, hey, when you do that thing, are you signaling to me? Or how do you feel about this? Or kind of ask some leading questions, because sometimes it's really hard to know, especially if somebody, and this is great segue into this, is a little bit more sarcastic. And you don't know if they are really sad about something or upset about something or angry. The best thing that you can do is ask them. That is the absolute best thing that you can do. And it's uncomfortable, because a lot of times we use these nonverbal behaviors because it's hard to say things in words, right? And so that's probably the best advice that I can give. Okay. One bad thing about nonverbal behavior is it can 100% contradict exactly what you're trying to say, right? So imagine that you have somebody that you dislike, and you and they don't get along very well, but they feel like they're your friend, and they don't understand that. And let's say you guys both went up for a scholarship. Okay. And that person came up to you and they're like, oh my God, guess what? I just got the scholarship. Okay. And you're like, I'm so happy for you. Are you happy for them? You're not. Okay. Your words say that you are. You're like, oh, I'm so happy for you. Okay. But your sarcasm says that you're not. Okay. And this is why sarcasm makes learning English from a person who's where English is not their first language makes it so hard for them to understand our language, because sarcasm, you take things for what it is, right? If you say something like, you're going to a party, right? And the person's like, are you going? You're like, I'm not going to the party. Are you going to the party? Hell yeah, you're going to the party. But you just said you weren't going to go to the party with your words. But your nonverbal sarcastic communication just said, oh, you are indeed going. How complicated is that? How complicated is that for somebody who doesn't understand the language? And they were like, well, you said you weren't going. And you're like, yeah, but I said that I was going. And they're like, no, you didn't. So it gets super complicated, because sarcasm, if you don't read it properly, the person can mean literally the opposite thing. Okay. And that can be hard for some people. And some people aren't as good at reading sarcasm. And that's just kind of, that's unfortunate, especially when you have a very sarcastic person like myself. Okay. So another thing that we can do with nonverbal behavior is see somebody way across the way that you can't holler at. So you then give them a sign. Okay, we're good. We're good. Come help me. Come here. Go away. I'll see you later. Call me. All great signs. Somebody looks at you and they say this. What are you going to do? Don't call me. Ew, text me. Right? You just had a conversation with somebody without saying anything. So if you're across the way and they're like, and you're like, okay, that means, no, don't call me dummy, text me, right? So we can absolutely use nonverbal communication to convey a message across the way to somebody else when we're trying to give them information. So I'm good, I'm okay, I'm gonna give you a thumbs up, and you're gonna move on, right? Now, we also have other ways to demonstrate what we mean. So for example, if I were to do to you, I'm gonna try to go, okay, we're here, okay? If I look at you and I'm like, what do I mean to you? What does that mean? You're dead. Yeah, I'm gonna cut you, right? And it's like, you don't want to see anybody do that. Okay, that's gonna be like, uh-oh. So I'm gonna give you guys an example. You guys know that I am a Marvel fan. So great example of somebody unfamiliar with the culture and doesn't recognize a symbol. And our symbols are specifically culturally based, okay? Where we need to understand the culture to understand the symbol, right? And symbols mean different things in different cultures. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And sometimes our symbols that we use in our culture are actually offensive to other cultures. And I'm going to talk about that. And I have a funny story with that later.